Hello and good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be located. Today is Monday, October the 5th, 2020, and I'm going to do yet another weather update. So we have now Hurricane Delta that has formed in basically the Caribbean, soon to move into the Gulf of Mexico, and then we as well have tropical depression Gamma that is hanging around in the same neck of the woods. The focus here that I'm focused on, even though both of these storms are projected in time to move towards the north, moving westerly to the north, and then curve off to the east. But the storm that we're going to focus on, I guess, the most is going to be Hurricane Delta. So if you followed my channel for a long time, you will know that when these tropical systems come through our neck of the woods, which is the Dauphin Island area of Alabama. So I'll zoom in here real quickly. Dauphin Island is located right where the blue dot is. Right here, this is just a local weather forecast station that I keep on my phone to check the weather. You know, you get up in the morning, you look at the weather, and here's another forecast track that is forecasted to come our way. Why is this a huge deal for us here? Because we just dealt with Hurricane Sally. For the past 3 or 4 days, Carla and I have been tossing out mattresses and clothes and fixing anything we can to prepare to gut the house that we rent or live in, so we can get back to living in that from the destruction of Hurricane Sally. So here we are. We have now Hurricane Delta. Now, when Hurricane Sally formed, this is the same kind of path it was on. You know, it was the focused or projected path of the track, or the projected track of the hurricane was focused on the Louisiana area. And here we are, it's in the same position once again. Now, for me, following these storms for all these years, I always tell myself, you know, this far out ahead of time, if the cone is right on you, generally, that's not going to be the case. So what worries me here is we have here another set of storms, but Hurricane Delta, once again, is aligned to basically run up to where we are located. Now, the big thing about this storm is going to be what happens when it enters the Gulf of Mexico. Now, in the northern Gulf of Mexico, in this area here, the water has begun to cool down a little bit. Well, why does this matter? Well, when the water is cool, the intensification begins to subside. So where it is now, it is rapidly intensifying, but I think as it moves towards the northern Gulf of Mexico, that it will begin to stabilize a bit. But still, the projected path out right now has this as a Category 2 hurricane, and this is from the National Hurricane Center. So let me take a step back and let's break this down a little bit, and I'll share with you at least my thoughts moving forward. So let me jump over here. Let me turn my pin off. And again, I'm just doing this on the fly. I'll get more into it as this storm approaches or gets more I guess, located closer to us. So let's take a look at it. So Hurricane Delta now has maximum sustained winds of 75 miles per hour and is moving west-northwest at 8 miles per hour. Now, once again, I've said this before, if the cone is right on you, generally that will change. Now, there's not much steering this storm, but as it approaches, I guess, the Gulf of Mexico, especially the northern Gulf of Mexico, there are some upper-level winds that may shear or may weaken or may inhibit its development, unlike Sally. Sally, it just hung around on the coast and stayed there and just moved really slow and it was able to maintain its strength, if not strengthen. So here we are. We have another one, but the temperature has dropped a little bit, so the shallow waters of the northern Gulf of Mexico, the temperatures will drop relatively quickly in shallow water, but the deeper water out where it is now, that has not happened. So it's rapidly intensifying for sure. All right, so let's take a look at a couple things. So the first probability map I'm going to show you is the probability of tropical storm force winds moving out for 48 72 hours. So this map here is showing you that 7 days out, that again, right here in the Dauphin Island area, we are already forecasted to have those type of winds here. Now, I disagree with this forecast once again. I do think that this storm will pick up a little bit of speed as it enters the Gulf of Mexico, and I do think it will take a more northerly turn and then off to the northeast a little bit sooner. What does that mean? I think that the projected path will shift more to the east as time progresses. If it were to stay on the current track right now, then, New Orleans would be bracing for the northeastern or the right front quadrant of this storm. And again, it's uncanny this year. We've had Laura and Marco, aka the Bonnie and Clyde of storms, and then we had Sally that absolutely caused a wrecked havoc in the Gulf Shores area and the Pensacola area, the Baldwin County area of Alabama. And here we go, we got another one coming right up our left flank. So we'll see what happens with the forecasted track moving forward. But let's look at some of the spaghetti models. Now, currently, Carla and I and our four children, we have 5 children, but our oldest one is in college at the Air Force Academy. But the 4 of us are staying at our local church, and we have a pretty good bunker set up here. But again, if this storm does come, I will continue to do the videos, but I'm going to leave the family here this time. But I will go back to our actual house, which again is currently not livable because of Hurricane Sally, and I will continue to do the videos there. But look at these forecast models. So this isn't my favorite set of tracks. So you've got the GFS here, you have the Euro models, you have a couple out of different universities, namely Colorado State, and all of these have this storm approaching on the same basic track. There's not a lot of flaw or error on these tracks. They're pretty tight together, which tells you that these models are relatively confident. The ensemble of them doesn't deviate too much. Now, if the center of this storm is, say, 80 miles wide in terms of hurricane force winds, then, you want to look at the center of circulation 80 miles to the east of that center of circulation. So if any of these models in this area hold true, then that means, another just absolutely bad setup for where we are here in Dauphin Island, Alabama. So none of these models look good. So here is my favorite ensemble, or my favorite set of tracks that I always look at. And this isn't good news at all. I will look as this storm approaches and we have a better idea if the storm is going to knock on our door again, then I'll start looking at the tide charts and try to kind of correlate a landfall with the tide schedule. Again, if the tide is high and it makes landfall at high tide and we have that northeasterly flow, then again, storm surge becomes an issue. We don't even have the west end of our island, so the island is about 5-7 miles long, give or take, and half of the island isn't even open to people unless you have a provable residence in that section of the island. So here we go. We have not one, but we have 2. So what's this storm doing pressure-wise, by the way? The pressure of Hurricane Delta yesterday was around 1,000 millibars, or 1,003 millibars. Within 6 hours of time, 6 hours, this storm has gone from an investigation or tropical depression to a tropical storm, and now to a hurricane, which has maximum sustained winds of over 74 miles per hour. It is at 75, and the pressure has dropped to 980 millibars. So this storm is rapidly intensifying. Let's look at some of the forecast models here in terms of intensity. All of the models have this storm basically coming in at minimum as a Category 2. Okay, let me see if I can change my pen color there. A lot of the models have this storm coming ashore as a Category 3. A couple of the models, 1, 2, 3, have it coming ashore as a Category 4. Now, I don't think it's going to be a Category 4 only because moving west-northwest or north or northeasterly at the point where it's going to make impacts, I don't think that the cooler water right along the coast will allow it to stay super strong. I think it will become a Category 2 and then a Category 3, but I think it will stabilize and deteriorate a little bit as it approaches the northern Gulf of Mexico. So there are some upper level wind shear elements that are there, that are in place. So as this storm approaches, I think that drier air will get wrapped into it. And hopefully that's the case. I'm usually really excited about doing the weather, stoked about it, but right now I really just want our house to be fixed so we can move back into it and get out of everyone's hair that we're having to stay at their places and wash clothes and so forth. So let's take a look at the Doppler, though, the infrared radar, and see what's going on out there. one thing we don't want to see is a bunch of cool cloud tops forming around its center of location. So I haven't seen this, so this will be new at this point for me. So here it is, the center of circulation, and it looks like it is organizing relatively quickly. So this is your, the center of circulation is in this area. You can see the cooler cloud tops, the purples, the whites. The storm is rapidly intensifying. Now this is good news for people that are in the cone projected path, because generally a hurricane is not going to maintain supermax strength for very long. So I think this might be a little bit of good news, at least for people that are expecting maybe impacts from this, is that this storm it's going to be rapidly intensifying, but as it gets closer and it meets that wind shear just before landfall, hopefully it dissipates a little bit. But nonetheless, I'm definitely going to film this. Either way, doesn't matter. I'll be out in it. The beautiful thing about weather for me is that it just reminds you of how insignificant and small we really are, because the power of these storms is just absolutely phenomenal. Now, ending this video, this is just, of course, a picture of some of the hurricane hunters that are flying out in their C-130s and their P-3s. They come in and do multiple passes, and that's how we get our readings. But let's roll down to tropical storm or tropical depression Gamma. Now, this is the second storm, and it's moving a little southerly now, and this is a storm that may or may not interact with Hurricane Delta. And what happens if they do? You know, it's kind of a gray area, because it's not too often that we get two storms that that feed off of or inhibited by one another. So the science is relatively low on the totem pole, I guess you could say. So we had Marco and Laura, and now we have Gamma and Delta. You know, what happens here? In comments, what do you think happens? Do these two storms come together and, you know, form some massive storm, or do they alter one another's direction, or does it weaken, or does it strengthen? You know, what are your thoughts there? Leave them in comments. Let's talk about it. But let's look at the projected path, though, of Gamma, because when you have one storm and then two storms, you know, two is a lot, you know, more powerful than one, and because the science is relatively elementary on it, and we're dealing with it for the second time, you know, what's going to happen? But look at the projected path here for Gamma. The same type of projected path. So, oops, I turned my pen on a little too soon. But again, we're right here where the tip of Alabama coast is. So here we are with some more models just absolutely lining us up, and this, what I call the chute. I always call this the chute. You know, once these storms get in here and there's not a lot of steering winds, as the storm strengthens, it pulls these things north. And again, I don't really think that the projected paths right now are right on it. I think they will differ a lot, even by the time we wake up tomorrow or the next day. But I think they will move more towards the east. I think the northeasterly turn will happen much more, or not much more, but sooner than the projected paths are indicating now. If you are in the coastal area of Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, Florida Panhandle, get ready for another run. We had the storm that touched down in Louisiana and St. Charles. I can't keep up with them all. There's been so many. But this is another storm, Gamma and Delta, another set of storms that's going to have impacts. And it's not a matter of if, it's just when and where. Once this storm enters the Gulf of Mexico, again, I will definitely get outside, definitely go back to our house that is being worked on, or at least beginning to be worked on this coming up week. That may be delayed. Hopefully the water intrusion that comes from these storms, something will happen, won't lead to any more I guess you could say catastrophe or drama nonetheless, but we have two storms headed our way, and we'll be here to do it. So, or at least I will. I'm going to leave the kids out on this one and the wife out on that one. But anyway, like the video, please. It helps out a lot. Please subscribe to my channel, or our channel. I know a lot of you, I do weather videos and you subscribe, and then when we do our tennis videos, you don't, you unsubscribe. So do me a favor and just stick with me. Again, I put passion into both things. I love tennis. I'm a tennis player. That's why we live here. And I love weather. So if you would stay subscribed, whether I'm doing weather or tennis, I would greatly appreciate it. And much love to all of you. But again, latest status is this storm is moving west-northwest at 9 miles per hour with a barometric pressure that has dropped from 1,003 millibars last night this time to 980, and has gone from 35-mile-an-hour winds to 75-mile-an-hour winds. And I think that will continue to happen until located in the central Gulf, and I think it will stabilize there, maybe pick up some wind shear, and maybe stay steady until landfall. But this storm could be very much like Sally. Could be better, could be worse, but we'll know a lot more as we move into, I say as we move forward. I mean, it is Monday. This storm is supposed to have impacts in landfall around Friday morning, Friday afternoon, something like that. So I'm going to get ready for this one. Going to stay pumped up, going to stay motivated, stay positive. Let's look forward to this storm, and hopefully we get some good weather out of it. I don't want any damage. Geez, we just lost the house that we live in. But nonetheless, I look forward to the storm, and I look forward to following it. Much love to everyone. Stay tough, stay strong, and be prepared. See ya.